Today we are going to focus on the tradition of Renaissance Hermeticism for a while. I'm going to demonstrate that the Hermeticists and Alchemists, when in early Renaissance Europe they made their famous and mysterious woodcuts, very much had the hidden location of the Garden of Eden on their mind. The work we will look at today must be situated in the Hermetic and Alchemist tradition of 15th and 16th century Europe. Try to see if you too can find clues to the location of the Garden of Eden using the knowledge and clues that you have been introduced to in our previous videos. Many of you will not yet have enough knowledge of mythology or celestial astronomy to understand all the references to them made in these drawings, but that can be remedied with studying. Another problem is that the Latin text of these works is filled with wordplay and double meanings, which usually escape from view in translations. Study of the ancient languages of Latin and Greek is not sufficient. One must also be sensible to the wordplay and simple anagrams which are present. Renaissance Europe, and especially the Hermeticists, were familiar with Roman and Greek mythology, which during the chaos of war in the Dark Ages was preserved on the borders of Christian Europe, for instance by the Arabs in Cordoba, Spain, but gradually found its way back into Europe both before and after the time of the Crusades. In that time, people were still trained in the 7 arts, a traditional teaching curriculum that was the continuation of ancient Greek methods of inquiry that began with a desire for universal understanding. Pythagoras, in his day, argued that there was a mathematical and geometrical harmony to the cosmos or the universe. His followers linked the 4 arts of astronomy, mathematics, geometry and music into one area of study called the quadrivium, which we today would classify as the sciences. In 4th century Athens, the government of the polis or city-state respected the ability of rhetoric or public speaking above almost everything else. Eventually, rhetoric, grammar and dialectic, which is also called logic, became the educational program of the trivium, which we would group together as the humanities. The combination of the trivium and quadrivium into one curriculum came to be known as the 7 liberal arts. While the arts of the quadrivium might have appeared prior to the arts of the trivium, by the Middle Ages, educational programs taught the trivium first, which is grammar, logic and rhetoric, while the quadrivium, or arithmetic, geometry, music and astronomy, were the following stage of education. So there was no focus on maths alone or humanities by themselves, but a mixture of both. The result is that in ancient times humans were well-rounded. They had a more universal training than often is the case today. While today, in the economic age of labor division, most people only train in some very specific domain as a clear route to a job description, neglecting everything else, in ancient times being well-versed in a broad variety of subjects was seen as essential for a man to be capable of being a free subject and a valuable member of civil society, which today is an educational ideal less and less aspired to. Today we train our children to be good workers, pacified individuals, useful for the labor market, cogs in the machine, instead of free men who understand their world, think critically and possess the necessary interdisciplinary skill set to either mold the world after their liking or deal with changes in the labor market. So, contrary to what happens today, students were not forced to choose between humanities and sciences, but instead were required to become skilled in both. They had an appreciation for all productions of the human mind, and all fields of study were seen to cross-pollinate productively in an interdisciplinary manner. It is also to be noted that the artificial divide that is created in education today, that is the one between education and religion, or religion in the sciences, did not exist in the past. An example of this old way of thinking is Isaac Newton, himself a famous alchemist, who gave a central place to God and the divine in all of his works, not to please the church, but because he believed in the divinity of nature. All study of nature was seen by Isaac Newton as a way to know God and his creation better. With regards to the drawings called emblems that will be shown in the following clip, note that they are made by the famous alchemist Michael Maier, who wrote the book Atalanta Fugiens in the beginning of the 17th century. First published in 1617, Michael Maier's alchemical emblem book contains a preface on ancient music and the Greek myth of Atalanta and Hippomenes. It also consists of 50 engraved emblems, each accompanied by a discourse and an epigram in verse set to music in the form of a fugue for 3 voices, the 3 voices being Atalanta, Hippomenes and Pomum Objectum. We ask you to resist the temptation of seeing the engravings merely as alchemical descriptions of chemical processes, which they are indeed. But for this exercise, you should look at them as drawings that are the result of a cross-pollination between all disciplines of the 7 liberal arts, showing the interdisciplinary condensed result of acquired and combined knowledge in all these fields, which, to recall, were astronomy, mathematics, geometry, music, and rhetoric, grammar, and logic. The viewer is asked to combine his acquired skills in every one of these fields, to which one also should add ancient mythology. This in order to extract the ultimate prize intended to be discovered, or if he believes there are multiple prizes to be found, at least clues concerning the location of the Garden of Eden. Be aware, some will look up the available English translations of the discourses that accompany each of these woodcuts. These people must be warned that the author will put them on the wrong footing, because what is depicted has a different meaning than that of the text. The author, Michael Maier, sometimes suggests not to take allegory literally, and yet that is precisely the tool that shows the road to Eden. Thus, knowledge is layered. Having uncovered every veil, the wise explorer must also pierce through the ultimate of veils, which the unexperienced in life and worldly affairs have so little resistance to, and that is the deliberate deceit by a person one is wont to trust, such as teachers or other characters one looks up to. If the explorer uses his intellect correctly, even this veil can be pierced. If he but follows his heart and intuition, in combination with his intellect and gained experience, the key will be as evident that it is as if it were found written on his forehead or anyone's forehead for that matter. And that is a hint. Experience and wisdom is the ultimate result of the alchemy of life, and when we return to look at things seen before, now with experience, new meanings can be discerned and, relevant in our quest, even the keys to paradise. Condensed together into single visual representations and relevant to our project, the emblems reveal clues about the Garden of Eden, encoded with the tools of all the 7 liberal artes, as described earlier, which I have discovered that they do, as probably many researchers before me did too, and in the process the viewer might be doing this as well. It is thus not Atalanta we will find hidden in these emblemata, but references to the Garden of Eden. Have fun with this little challenge that will test your knowledge of mythology and simple ways of encoding messages into images that have been used since ancient times. In the next video, I will demonstrate with a selection of key drawings, and by explaining some of the references and codes within them, that Hermetic and alchemist knowledge from roughly 400 to 500 years ago really already points to the location of the Garden of Eden, showing in the process that the knowledge of its location was never really lost. Don't hesitate to watch the woodcuts in double speed, because there are indeed 50 of them. Have fun and see you next time. As always, please do subscribe, comment and like our videos, because it really does make a difference. I am your host, Joris Luipaert.